Gilbert, now it's time for Compas on the LA.
Bam.
Obviously, Chargers fired Joe Lombardi. Gilbert, obviously, when you look at moves like this, sometimes you call them monumental because of the development of quarterbacks or the development of the offense. How big is this hire for not only Brandon Staley's future with the Chargers and Tom Telesco's future for the Chargers, but Justin Herbert and his progression?
No, it's big, and I think when Brandon Staley got hired, his job was to make Herbert get better every single year. That occurred the first year, and second year, maybe he was just a little stagnant. I don't know about progressing, but he still when his bar is really high, so he was at the same bar, and then he did a lot too, with a lot of injuries as well. So we can't forget that. But when it was all ready, everybody was healthy, prime time, you accomplished your goal of getting Justin Herbert to his first playoff game because, oh man, the cries would have been loud, Fernando, if you didn't get that. You got that. But then you blow a 27-point lead, 3 points in the second half, and we're talking about Joe Burrow here and not Justin Herbert. So you got to find the coordinator to make him get to that point, elevate him, not just to be a yards guy, get 5,000 yards every single year. No, win in the playoffs, go long. And it's been interesting too, figuring out these candidates, Fernando, because it sounds like to me, or it looks like, Brandon Staley really wants somebody who's been around Sean McVay, and that's my department, the Rams beat. Zach Robinson, Greg Olson, both coaches for Sean McVay have interviews, or they have already interviewed with Brandon Staley. And yeah, there's a couple names that you saw. I think there's a guy from the Vikings. I forget who else. When you're better with that name.
Gerard Johnson. But him, Gilbert, real quick, he sounds more like he'd be a quarterback's coach
Okay.
interview because he's an assistant quarterback's coach. You rarely ever see a jump from assistant quarterback's coach to
Yeah.
offensive coordinator. So, and he
But
has a history with Frank Reich. Gerard Johnson does. So I wonder if maybe they're interviewing him as their quarterback coach.
they
Just in
do
case.
have that opening too. And
Yep.
the other part about it too, Fernando, he worked under Kevin O'Connell this past year, and I think that's also an extension of the McVay
Of the
tree.
Bay tree.
And that's where I'm leaning on. Like, regardless of what happens, maybe it could be kind of a Shanahan disciple, but I think he's going with the McVay tree. And like,
Do you think it's smart though?
I think for him, looking what happened with the first time around, if you're gonna go out swinging, go out your way. And I think his way is something along the lines of McVay philosophy, the system. Obviously, you don't want to copy things because when you copy things, that's a recipe for disaster. But when Joe Lombardi was your third option and you start checking your contact book and you're new to the NFL, you're like, well, this guy coached me in college. Let's try it. And when it's your third option, and it's also a very complicated scheme where they're trying to blend the Kyle Shanahan with the Shane Day. And
Yep.
that first year, I kept thinking, like, there's so many cooks here. Like, even when Frank Smith came in, he came from, like, the Raiders background, and it was like, okay, we're gonna get that and blend into the perfect thing for Justin Herbert. And it just felt complicated, but maybe not for Herbert. Like, that guy, he's smart up here, has all the skills, and he got it. But then after the second year, it was no progress. I get it. There was injuries. But if you're gonna go swinging, go what you believe is right. Like Staley has belief in the defense, and it's a Vic Fangio scheme, and he made it his way. I think he wants to go with the offense being the McVay way, the 11 personnel and things like that, the jet sweeps, all that. And if he's gonna lean Zach Robinson, I like it for multiple reasons because Cooper Kupp is a big fan of Zach Robinson. He was a wide receivers coach. He helped out guys like Robert Woods, Brandon Cooks, Odo Beckham, all these guys you could think of. And then he got the respect of Matthew Stafford. That's big. But he's never called plays before. He's a young coach. And when you're talking about a young coaching staff and you want experience, that's a little bit of a downside. But everything else I like about Zach Robinson. Greg Olsen, I don't know. I feel like he's had his shot. That's a little weird one for me. But I'll end it there for you, Fernando.
Zach Robinson, I saw a video. He worked at PFF back in 2018, and they had him. Well, not worked for. I think he was
Yeah.
just doing stuff with them. He did. There's a video of him where he talks about Justin Herbert. I found it over the weekend,
Really?
and he said he was looking at Oregon, Justin Herbert, and he's like, if you put this guy in a boring system where it's just slant routes, out routes, a pretty basic offense, he's gonna get bored, and you're not using him to the best of your abilities. You need to go down the field with this guy. You can't just give him weapons that are medium to they're not 5-10 yards. He needs to go down the field. He needs to go 20-30 yards. His down the field touch is the most beautiful and accurate thing. He's like, I think he even said in the video, there's nobody in the NFL that can throw down the field like this guy right now. And you're like, oh wow, like he
Is
was saying that about a college
that the video
quarterback.
that we have coming up? I think Victor's saying it might be a video, but I'm not sure. Um,
But
but
yeah,
real quick, I spoke to Zach Robinson in the summer training camp. It was great to talk to coaches, and he wasn't coaching. He was a little bit out the league for at the time, but he was helping out the combine. He was a quarterback coach for the combine. That's where you probably met Justin Herbert. That's where and he was working for PFF as well. So he was doing
yeah.
helping out with the combine, PFF, and all that. And it's funny that you mentioned because he told me all the stories of that.
Yeah, so it was just interesting to watch his perspective. I think Zach Robinson would do a great job, especially if you're trying to go for the McVay thing. I just
By the
think
way,
that
if PFF means analytics, and people will like that.
yeah, but I mean, for some reason, I keep on going. You need a veteran coach who's had experience. Frank Reich just seems like the perfect guy for me. I just don't know if he'd want to come back to the Chargers because he was fired back in 2015. Then he went on with the Eagles, and then that's how good. Then he got really good. So definitely interesting. But Gilbert, Jalen Ramsey continues to tweet like someone who's expecting to get traded this offseason. Um, I wonder. I don't know what your thoughts are, but man, if he gets traded, and it did sound kind of. I saw some stuff from him, and it sounded like he does feel like he's gonna get traded. I mean, I don't know what to make of it. I mean, I think he's such a good player. He still has it. Yeah, there's videos where he's getting beat by Travis Kelce or other stuff, but I thought the last 3 weeks of the season he played really hard. He played really tough, and I think any team would be lucky to have him. Um, cut or like, do you think he'd get cut, or do you think they would have to trade him? Because I know if he gets cut and he's not looking to make all that much money for 1 year, I know a team that would definitely love to have him,
Wow.
but I just think with his huge salary, I don't think they could
No,
take him
no, and then this is a thing where I think could be an option because
because they're the Chargers are 19 million over the cap.
so you mean over? Oh yeah, they actually I did see that they are in the
Yeah,
red line, huh? Because
which I'm surprised that Tom
I was looking at the
Telesco.
Rams and they were in the red line for $14 million. But we'll keep in mind that just paid Joey Bosa, Keon. All these things are coming up. Mike Williams, that they're starting to come up. But you
Do you know
got
how
to make
much Joey's a $31 million cap hit next year?
you got to make some moves for Justin Herbert, by the way. So that's going to be a trickier problem for Tom Telesco. But yeah, the Rams are also in the red line, and they're $14 million, I guess, over the cap. And when we spoke to Les Nee, he kept saying he kept hinting like there's a time for a philosophy shift. He has a lot of guys on their contract in their prime, but you got to make the money work. And then also, this team is not a couple players from the fourth or fifth round gems away from making you a Super Bowl contender. You don't have that
No.
anymore. You're a top heavy roster with holes. And how do you fix holes? Draft picks. And Jalen Ramsey will get you the draft picks and also clear up the cap space. So I don't know if it's Ramsey, but he's a guy who might give you the best draft pick because Bobby Wagner is great, but would he give you something better than Jalen Ramsey? I don't
No.
know. Obviously, Aaron Donald will give you something better, but you don't want to trade that guy. And then also his
But
contract is massive. He's
do
$41
you
million
think somebody will trade for him?
for Aaron or
Ramsey.
uh I think so. It's just also too Brandon Staley, when we spoke to him the week they played the Rams, kept saying like he like I know they're friends, but when you say things like, "Okay, you're a corner, you should play safety," that's kind of like in a way like saying you're not good at this position anymore. But Brandon felt really comfortable saying like he could be Charles Woodson, he could do that shift and do well. And then he was asked about it, Ramsey, and he's like, "Yeah, I could see myself being Charles Woodson." So I'm like, okay, he's not afraid to shift positions, but he just does so many things very well that I don't think he's going to put ego in his place to avoid like, hey, I don't want to play safety. I want to keep playing corner.
I,
But one
yeah.
more,
Yeah,
if
yeah,
he's
yeah.
next to Derwin James, he will do it. He will do whatever it takes to play with his best
I would
friend.
love to see them play. That's why I was asking you, like, do you think if like they would cut him? Because I don't think the Chargers can give up that first round. The only way I would have given up that first round draft pick it was for Sean Payton.
Yeah,
But there's no way I'd give it up now because
second
they
round
have
draft pick
they
for Jalen Ramsey.
First round, but the
Second
thing
round,
is,
second round, second round.
second round, yeah, I might do that. The thing is that first round draft pick is either for a fast receiver or a dominant tight end like Michael May, or like other than that, or even I saw Bucky Brooks had Bijan Robinson, the running back from Texas, going to the Chargers. He's like, Austin Eckler can't do it on his own. He needs somebody like this guy. But then I'm like, that's 4 years in a row of you drafting a running back, and the first 3 have
Oh my
not worked
God.
out.
Well,
And now it's this guy.
remember when we saw the trade for Devontae Adams or even Tyreek Hill, like the compensation wasn't as high as we thought because you have to pay the guy.
Yeah,
So it could
exactly.
be a second and third round pick. But with Ramsey, who's I think maybe 1 more year on his contract, is a little outdated contract to rework it. Are you willing to do that when you know you have to pay Justin Herbert?
Yeah, no, and it would be interesting to, because I'm sorry, but Nazir Adderley has not worked out, and neither has Alohi Gilman's better, but Nas just looks lost to me, and I
Yeah.
just don't think he's good enough. If you had Jalen Ramsey and
Derwin? Imagine those
Derwin
two
back
guys
there,
together.
the
Safeties.
only problem is JC Jackson. Man, it sounds like JC. They don't know if JC Jackson's ever going
That's
to
another
come
reason
back.
why you make a trade like that, because your secondary is unpredictable right now with that
I know.
injury.
There you go, JC Jackson for Jalen Ramsey straight up.
Just wait around. You can't have that contract in your books.
No, I know. All right. Well, that was a good, obviously a good conversation.